Perspective seems like a very rigid thing that has a lot of set rules, definitely more than many other aspects of art. Even so, it's still possible to bend and break these rules in a way that makes things more interesting. It can also be exaggerated beyond what you would be able to see with your eyes in the real world, resulting in something that feels much more imaginative and dynamic. Like for a lot of other things, it's important to have a decent ability to draw on perspective before you start breaking and bending any rules. Being able to freehand a simple grid with vanishing points in mind is an important skill. If a vanishing point is outside of your canvas space, most of the time it's okay to not bother figuring out exactly where it is and just draw the lines converging in that general direction. Not everything needs a perfect grid. If you have an understanding of 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point perspective and can sketch them out, then it'll be easier to pull off perspectives that might not make sense realistically, but at the same time look intentional and not like a beginner's mistake. Curving the grid lines is a fun and fairly easy way to warp the perspective. Freehanding your grid is ideal for making things warp in a specific, unique way. You might also want to try using a fisheye grid for what's called curvilinear perspective. This has 4 or more vanishing points and curving lines between them. You should be able to find a grid like this if you search for it. For subtle warping, use a zoomed in section of the grid, and for a more extreme effect, use a larger portion of it. You don't necessarily have to curve your vertical lines when working with 4 vanishing points. In this case, if an object is below the horizon, its vertical lines will connect to the lower vanishing point, and if an object goes above the horizon, its vertical lines will connect to the upper one. If you have anything in the middle area that doesn't look right either way, the vertical direction could be a balance between the two. It looks like you're both looking down at the rectangle near you and up at the rectangle further back. This is why 4 vanishing points are ideal for making the height difference between two things seem really dramatic. Things tend to look more interesting when they are seen from above or below rather than straight on, which is why 3-point perspective is an easy to do, great option for a dynamic but still realistic view. Adding that third point pinches everything towards either the top or bottom of the image, mimicking how part of an object will look smaller the further above or below it is from your eyes. It's also a lot like changing the focal length on a camera lens. To get a more exaggerated feeling, try putting 1 or more of your vanishing points closer to your canvas. Rather than things getting gradually smaller as they go back, the shift becomes dramatic and can allow you to fit a great sense of distance inside of an illustration. This is especially the case when you have a vanishing point inside of the canvas space, which is what 1-point perspective is best for. It allows you to show things going as far back as they can possibly get. Keep in mind that when working with anything other than 1 point, putting a vanishing point well within the borders of an image can cause weird things to happen. This isn't necessarily always bad though if you aren't aiming for realism and are able to find creative solutions to any problems it causes. An example of this is here with these 2 vanishing points that are really close together. You could draw a box between them, but then if you tried to draw a box outside of this space, there's no way to make it work that looks natural. But then if you had a third vanishing point on the horizon line, where there wouldn't realistically be one, then you can use it to complete the box. Make a sequence of vanishing points all on the horizon, and whatever you draw on the scene will connect to whichever 2 vanishing points it's sandwiched between. The result is like a panorama, where the view is unnaturally wide. Looking at this grid, you would probably assume that if a person were standing in this space, they would look something like this. Most of the time, that probably would be what you want, but there's other possibilities as well, and crazier viewing angles like these might be the best option for some narrative illustrations. Even just a simple rotation can really change how an image feels. After rotating this thumbnail sketch, the tilt of the horizon makes you no longer feel like you're standing on level ground, and instead like you're high up and looking down a steep slope. It's a small change that makes a big difference. A great example and source of inspiration for taking creative liberties with perspective is Rob Poynton's paintings. A lot of them have extremely distorted, sometimes curving grid lines that don't follow any strict guidelines. I really enjoy the exaggerated steepness of these environments as well. Even though I would hate to be here, it's fun to look at. Instead of jumping directly into creating your own scenes with challenging perspective from imagination, it might be more manageable to practice with or closely follow photo reference. Find a photo, draw over what you think the realistic perspective grid is, and then redraw the grid in the image with a new, more exaggerated take on the perspective. One more way to make things a bit easier that I've done in a lot of these examples is coloring your grid lines to match their corresponding vanishing point. It's a simple thing to do that makes making sense of all the lines much more manageable. Here's my video about giving things impressive scale that might be helpful to watch next. Thanks Patreon members, and thanks for watching.